Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We'll see if the green shirt with the green screen is a good idea. Probably not. Uh, this is video 3 of the Prepare for pennsic 50 video series. This is not an official video of the SCA, any of the kingdoms, or Cooper's Lake Campground. This is just a land agent of many years giving you tips and advice on how to survive your first or earlier pennsic experiences. So, what else do you need to get ready for pennsic? Clothing. You need to get dressed. So this video is going to be about how to get dressed. So, what is garb? Why do we need it? What are we wearing? And how does this affect your pennsic experience? Garb is the term used by most Scadians involving the clothing that we wear. It tends not to be referred to as a costume because costumes are something temporary, whereas garb is clothing. And since you're going to be in this all day, it's definitely clothing. But why should we worry about it? Basically, because the Society for Creative Anachronisms is the hosting element of the pennsic War. You have to follow the rules. And the rules basically state that you are to make an attempt at pre-1600 clothing, and that is your garb. The fact that it has to be somewhere between the year 400 and 1600, known somewhere in the world, gives you a lot of leeway. But you also have to deal with the fact that you're at pennsic, and that's a different kind of story. Pennsic has weather. Pennsic has a lot of open space. Pennsic has a lot of dirt and dust and mud and rain and heat and cold. So when it comes to what kind of clothing to wear, you kind of have to take that into consideration. Now, some people like to only dress in their persona, how their persona would dress. And that's a great thing. And I highly encourage it. I actually appreciate it when people can acknowledge what they're wearing is more historically accurate. However, at pennsic, this can be a bit of a challenge because your persona may not have had to deal with the environmental situations that you yourself are going to deal with in Western Pennsylvania in the middle of global warming weirdness that is Western Pennsylvania. I have seen, I won't call it snow, I will call it frost. We had to scrape windshields one year. Now, if you're from down south, that's snow. If you're from up north, it's frost. But yes, it was that cold in August. I've also seen pretty hefty triple digits with very high humidity. And, I've seen, no rain whatsoever to it stopped raining for 4 hours for the entire war. That was pennsic 23. So you can't be guaranteed what kind of weather you're going to deal with. Now, your persona would have had summer clothing and winter clothing, so being prepared that way shouldn't be that big a deal. But consider bringing all of it, your summer clothing and your winter clothing, because it could very well go very quickly, very cold. Your goal, obviously, maybe not obviously, but your goal will be layering, lots of layers, because you can ditch layers when it's too hot. You can add layers if it's hot and get yourself out of the sun. Sunscreen is great. Cloth is SPF 5 billion. So having a veil or a head covering or something like that is very, very valuable. Wearing a hat is an amazing thing. Keep you out of the sun. The reason these videos are coming out in the order they are, pretending that I have some sort of plan, is now you have a chance to start sewing or acquiring your clothing now and ready for pennsic. But if you don't have a persona, or you don't stick to your persona that rigidly, you have the advantage of having maybe some Middle Eastern garb for the hot days and some Viking clothing for when the temperature drops, having some wool or fur cloaks in the cold weather is fantastic and can make the difference between feeling miserable and cold and alone in your tent trying to just stay warm to having this great big wool cloak and fur and everything keeping you warm, feeling all good. Find somebody who looks cold and wrap your cloak around them, with consent, and life is good. It is what we make it. So having the extra layers is always good. As far as keeping clean and keeping everything going, there is a laundromat on site. It is very small. It is certainly smaller than you would want for a city of 10,000 people. So being able to take care of your clothing judiciously would be a good idea. Having every pair of socks you own and as much underwear as you can carry won't hurt anything. And modern underwear is perfectly fine. If anyone's checking your underwear, again, consent is a thing. Good luck. Have a good time. And if they're complaining that it's not historically accurate, kick them out of your tent. So, they should appreciate where they're at. But having as much socks and undergarments as you can will be a great help. A side note, and this will be in the packing video later, is also have a set of mundane clothing, socks, underwear, mundane t-shirt, whatever, in a Ziploc bag locked in your car. So when it's time to go home, if everything else has gone to hell in handbasket, everything's muddy, everything's dirty, everything you're done for the war, you still have clean clothing to get dressed into for the trip home that is dry and safe and not messed up. So how do you keep it clean? First off, I do know there are people who will hang their clothing. Depending on your tent situation, I tend to keep my stuff, and I have a pavilion now, but I still do this, is I keep my clothing in one of those big Rubbermaid moving totes with a snap-on lid, not the folding lids, but the ones that snap on, because if we have a good downpour rain and for some reason the water comes running through my tent, it's in its own little Noah's Ark protective tote. If my laundry floats away, inside is still dry. I can go fetch it and bring it back, and I'm okay. I have several of these totes around the tent. They get used as like end tables and stuff also. So when it's time to get stuff, I clear it off and open it and grab out a tunic or something, put it back together. So, yeah. So, things like tunics. I have the tendency to have a lot of Viking tunics and stuff. I'm not a Viking. It's really good for setting up and breaking down camp, however, to just have a tunic to throw over you and get work done. Nice thing. As far as bringing fancy clothing is concerned, some of this you're going to want to hang up if you can. If your tent is too small, obviously you're in a situation there where that's not a possibility. But some people insist on not bringing fancy clothing. Some people do. There's a handful of events at pennsic where fancy clothing actually is kind of cool. You have the Blue Feather Ball, which hasn't been as fancy lately, but traditionally is one of the see and be seen events at pennsic. The Blue Feather Ball is hosted by Clan Blue Feather, which is the LGBT blah 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 alphabet soup organization. It's a household in the SCA for that group. You do not have to be LGBT anything to go. But understand that you may be dancing with somebody who isn't who you think they are. A lot of times it's a masked ball also, which is really super fun. Um, there are other dance balls at pennsic, but that has traditionally been the big C&B scene. Other events to wear your fancier garb to would be any one of the number of vigils that go on at pennsic. If you know someone getting a peerage, that would be a great reason to dress up also. There are various courts at pennsic, but honestly, I don't know, unless you know you're being called in for something or know someone being called in for something. I don't know that I dress up that fancy for court. It's usually dark. It's usually, I don't know, or it's in the middle of the field in the blazing sun. Meh, your mileage may vary on that one. But for the dances and the parties, the formal parties, being able to dress up well is a pretty cool thing. There's also, let's see, there's a hoity toity at Casa, which, if you are new to pennsic but a baron or better, somebody with bling, that's a party for you guys and is more showy. And also, honestly, Midnight Madness or Moonlight Madness, whatever you want to call it, the big shopping event on Wednesday night, tends to be a C&B scene. So it's a great time, as long as the weather holds, to dress up a little bit fancier to go shopping, because everybody's walking around town being fancy. So that's actually a fun one to actually dress up for also. Specialty garb. Weird things. Do you have like Jedi robes? Can you dress like Jack Sparrow? Do you have any? Yeah, these things happen. Um, if you know you want to do this, okay, you're going to wear that clothing less than the rest of your garb, unless that's the extent of your garb, in which case, start sewing. Get more garb. Um, there are specialty parties at pennsic. I know there's like a Scottish luau being planned, and there's every year there is the pennsic pirate crawl and stuff like that. Of which, for those of you who don't know, I'm Lord Ian Douglas, captain of the Aberration Pennsic Pirates. Uh, yep. But if you have the garb for that kind of stuff, yeah, you may want to bring that. In the end, this is bring your garb, is really the advice you're getting right now. If you don't have that much garb, but you have a heavy wallet, you can always buy more garb at pennsic. There are plenty of merchants at pennsic who sell garb, both new and used, mostly new. There's very few consignment places anymore. Um, but there's also barter town, so you might be able to barter for some clothing. And a couple of the merchants will do alterations, but most of it will be, does this fit you? And most of the merchants are pretty cool about dealing with you as far as getting you fitted and stuff, because they know they're going to see you again. So you can get dressed. If you have no garb at all, you can walk in there with your credit card and just go from merchant to merchant, buy a belt here, buy a tunic there, buy some belly dance garb here. You can do it. But now is the time to start seriously thinking about preparing what garb you do have and get sewing on any projects you like. Consider outdoor wear, cloaks, coats, things like that, because it's going to make life easier if you can just throw a cloak on over what you got on and you're happy. That's a great thing. A handful of tunics, even though you're not a Viking, is still going to give you something to wear between the times you're wearing your nice garb. If you're going to go out onto the field and see somebody fight for you as part of a pass to arms and you want to wear that fancy garb, that's great. But don't wear that garb all war and then expect it to look nice for that event. That's a different story. Throwing a tunic on to cook dinner, sure. So, and if you happen to be a Viking persona where that tunic is your fancy garb, hey, bring more tunics. I hope this helps. If you have any other questions about garb, leave them in the comments below. Also, any information, these questions now are coming from you guys, and I appreciate that. If you like, subscribe, comment below. It all helps the pennsic algorithm. No, the YouTube algorithm. So I appreciate all the love and support you guys give me. The next video is going to be probably about fighting and getting authorized. We'll see how that works. I was getting more information about authorizations before pennsic, and I got some of the information, and I'm waiting on a little bit more. So hence garb jumped before authorizations. Thank you very much. And you know, you're going to get a cat photo at the end of this. So here comes the cat photo.